Let's shift gears now to see when we talk about the handshake, because we have this particular pronouncement from the Deputy President where he's slamming the opposition leader Raila Odinga, saying his handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta was for selfish gains and not for the interest of Kenyans, as he claims. Ruto remarks coming shortly after Raila's lecture to Kenyans in the United Kingdom, where Raila said his coalition did not lose in the elections, but that he made peace with President Kenyatta as he ponders his next move in his quest to reach Canaan, the destination he had promised his supporters. Take a listen.
Tuliwanasa, tukawapeleka kwa mahakama bila Bwana Maraga, na tukatoa ushahidi ya kutosha na mahakama ikakubaliana na sisi. Sema wakiiba tunawanasa. Nasa hawa. Nasa hawa. Nasa hawa. That's why we said wakiiba tutawanasa. Na tuliwanasa.
Hakuna haja ya kuzunguka Kenya hii na kuzunguka dunia hii kutembeza propaganda na porojo na fitina ati Jubilee hawakushinda uchaguzi. Sisi tulishinda uchaguzi mapema, mchana, wa Kenya waliamua.
The only democratic and fair election that has been held was the one of 2002. From 1963, where there were no complaints. And in that elections, the Electoral Commission had been nominated, half of it by the opposition and half of it by the government of the day.
The biggest threat to our democracy, our progress, and our stability is people who have questionable democratic credentials and dictators who participate in elections, yet they cannot accept the outcome of any election.
Jamaa wa handshake wa vitendawili amekuja na referendum. Juzi nasikia wenzetu wanasema anataka nusu mkate.
We are still very much on our march to Canaan. But we found that River Jordan was infested with crocodiles. So we decided that it's necessary to build bridges.
Who are the crocodiles? That is the probing question we should be asking this morning. And is the Deputy President also speaking from both sides of his mouth? He said he will be focusing on the politics of development, but right now we can see he's actually also disparaging the famous or the infamous handshake. Let's hear from our panelist, David Mukali. We begin with you on that note. Yes, the reaction of our Deputy President over the handshake before he loaded this particular handshake. Right now, it sounds doubtful about the handshake itself.
You see, from where I sit and I follow these things quite often, it is now clear that, anyway, let me say this. I think the Deputy President should restrain himself from any altercations with Raila Odinga that show him to be working or antagonistic to the handshake. He can ignore, because if you look at what Raila said in London, he did not mention anybody. For example, he just spoke in his usual metaphors and talking about. In fact, he used something very creative when he says he was going to Canaan. Then he realized the river was infested with crocodiles. Then he has used the word that is now being used for the handshake. They needed a bridge, to build a bridge. So he is using his own wisdom to communicate something. It is known that the Deputy President and Raila are not the best of friends, and their fallout is traced back to 2010 or thereabouts, when he left ODM and went on to form URP and so on. So every time he jumps in or comes into a conversation or comments on Raila's issues, people see a certain old battle being revived. So if I were him, I would avoid that situation where I begin to cast myself against him. Two, the handshake has been interpreted to be something that will not sit well with the Deputy President's intentions or ambition to take over in 2022. Strategically, he should be more, restrained again in terms of coming out and exposing his head on a matter that, you know, he has vested direct, clear interest. And then the circumstances in which the handshake was itself crafted, largely to his little participation, if not exclusion, renders the whole arrangement something alien to him that he should also approach with care. And he is a man who is watched. This whole thing is around him because he is on the ball. He is the one who is next in succession. And he has to be careful, because if he's going to be fighting and jumping and responding and getting rattled with every proclamation, 4 years is a long time. He'll falter, he'll fall, he'll rise, So, I mean, I don't know what, you know, he's a smart and very intelligent politician, but I think he needs to manage a little bit of his reaction sometimes for his own good.
But given the ongoings, of course, you as a deputy president, you'll feel a bit of heebie-jeebies, get antsy, especially if you pick a headline that is also on the front page of its Star as well. If you may just look at that. Ruto allies from Central go quiet over DP 22 bid, right? And a lot has been happening. And of course, he's been making inroads in Central Kenya to try and woo and also secure his voting bloc as well. So why wouldn't you remain? You know,
I would be more calmer. I mean, if you look at, for example, the team that is around him and what they are saying, they are going back to the election politics and hardball, mutu wa vitendawili and all that. And people have said, look, we are now past that. We are in the handshake era. Let's keep all of us going. Let's forget the Brit-Bats of the last election. But you can see they are reviving those same attacks. Two, no one needs to defend the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Deputy President going forward, because even Raila is just saying, you know, in jest and also in his own interest. It does not need to be answered or responded to. He is dealing with his constituency. He is defending his actions, why he persisted, and hence the handshake. Give a man his due. Let him appease or somehow deal with his constituency. Don't come in. Play your ball. Nobody is challenging in the election. In fact, they have crossed that bridge with the handshake. There's no more dispute or contestation over the election results. So move forward.
All right. Is Central Kenya mealy mouthed about Deputy President 2022's bid? Kabando Kabando?
You know, I've spoken about this when I was in Parliament. And when I'm out, one may not have a very strong authority to speak on behalf of anybody, but I have an opinion. Okay, and I've written about it. I put it on social media, commented about it in the newspapers and on television. I can tell you two things. One, the position of the deputy president or vice president in any country who seeks to succeed his or her boss is very venerable and viable. And you don't need to travel out of Kenya to see or to study the difficulty of that office. You know, look at the first vice president, how it ended up. When it happened, like, you know, the vice president was causing some camp within KANU. And in 1966, KANU, the then single party, trooped to Limuru to create 8 positions of vice president. Every province in Kenya produced a vice president, and the Jaramogi's position was watered down because people were insecure. People within the camp of Jomo Kenyatta, in my own study, shows that they got insecure. They were uncertain as to whether their interests would be protected by Jaramogi. Then came Murumbi, and Murumbi left. Very celebrated Masai Gwan extraction individual, and then Moi took over. From 1968 to 78, Moi was a vice president at the Kenyatta, and in 1976 we had very serious issues at the camps, and we have talked about it, so let me not repeat again. Yes. People can go and read about that. Now, then Kibaki became a vice president at Moi. Very intelligent man, charismatic, the man whose day of reading the budget anytime was spellbinding this country. I remember in primary school, it was like a holiday nationally when Moi Kibaki was the Minister for Finance, and teachers would come with their radios, small radios, in order to listen to the speech. So, but he remained calm under Moi until there was a fallout in 1988, and thereafter the rest is history. So, what I can tell you is that the position of deputy president needs to be handled with a lot of care. And the people around, and I've spoken about this bold that I can say it live on TV, the people around the incumbent deputy president of the Republic of Kenya are doing him more harm than good. This excessive sycophancy and dismissal, you know, the deputy president will rise and speak, and he will give a very eloquent, sober, and often very visionary speech. But the individuals who have spoken before him, the senators, the members of parliament, will have laid the carpet for a war path, a political blood path. So sometimes it's good to rain on your troops and allow them to moderate, because the message they give. If, for instance, a senator from Red Valley who is very outspoken, or a senior leader in the national parliament who is very outspoken and is known to be very close to the deputy president, says something, it can easily be read to mean otherwise. Or it can be, the statement can be assigned to the deputy president even when he doesn't mean it, or he never said it, or he never even agrees with it. So political management needs to be done. Moving forward to 2022, because 2022 is going to come, it is undoubted that the deputy president will remain very aggressive. He has created his political space. He's a very resilient individual. Give it to him. Yeah, and some people saw it a long time ago. Even the retired president, Moi, saw it. That's why even, I think, Mwai Kibaki saw it. That's why he came on this side. And even Uhuru saw it. That's why he went to fish him for running mate, and URP and the TNA got into that partnership. So it is not in doubt that moving forward to 2022, the deputy president will be very forceful, and he will try to edge everybody around him who will try to occupy an undeserved or undue or competitive space that he needs to occupy. Now, when you assign this to regions, like I've seen now in the headline of this newspaper Star, Ruto allies from Central Kenya go quite over DP's 22 bid. I think we are paralyzing, and we are creating ethnic fiefdoms. So, you know, we want to demarcate the country. You see, Jubilee, give it, has members of parliament in Kitui, Kalonzo's backyard. It has members of parliament in Kakamega, in Trans Nzoia, in Kisii, you know, even when those counties may be at the county leadership of NASA, you know, the rival parties. I don't think it is fair to continue talking about Central Kenya, Central Kenya. When you talk about Central Kenya, you actually mean Kikuyus. The seat of the President of the Republic of Kenya is the seat of the Republic of Kenya, elected by the 42 ethnic nationalities that happen to belong to this God-given.
We see the deputy president taking a particular interest in Central Kenya, knowing that I think and this was a pact also in the Jubilee Party that yes, those pronouncements have been there for President Uhuru Kenyatta.
I think it's unfair. If you look at his schedule, I've looked at the schedule of the deputy president for the whole of this year, the places he has visited. He has been to many other places more than he has been to Central Kenya. Okay, he has been to Western Kenya more often than Central Kenya. He has been to Red Valley, his place of heritage, more than he has been to Central Kenya. The only interest is because of the Kikuyu question. And the Kikuyu question is, will the people of Mount Kenya, the Gikuyu, Ebu, Meru, and Bere, return a hand and elect the deputy president?
And of course, that is a question. So we cannot outrule the old question about, yes?
And that is the speculation that the media is trying to force people into. I would say, people of my generation, Omogeni, people of my generation should try as much as possible to dismantle the stereotypes.
Thank you. Let's hear from Omogeni. You actually agree with the position being espoused here by...
Yeah, let me begin with...
By Kabando.
Yeah, let me begin with what makes me a bit sad by the stance being taken by the deputy president. You know, we were in this panel some time ago, and we agreed that we are at that moment as a country where we all agree that we need some constitutional amendments to our constitution. And we said that this is a time that we need leaders who are going to put the interests of this country first and forget about our individual ambitions. And I am sad, when I am seeing a headline in the nation that Deputy President is saying referendum is a losers project. As a country, we say that, to have a Kenya where we all have a sense of belonging, to strengthen our institutions so that we all do some cleanup on the constitution that we passed in 2010, we had a very fantastic political climate to do constitutional reform with the handshake of President Uhuru and the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. But the camp spearheaded by the DP, His Excellency William Ruto, seemed to be totally against any attempt to relook at any provision of this constitution. And I think the perception from his camp is that the constitution amendments are meant to block his ascendancy to presidency, or if he was to ascend to the presidency, then it will make his presidency weaker. I really want to appeal to him that history will be, will judge him very harshly if he stands on the way of the Kenyan people who single-minded at this opportune moment are looking forward to a moment to relook and do some amendments to this constitution. And even listening to Dr. Uchodo here, there are so many issues, even on how to clear people to run for elective offices, which should be a serious human rights issue. There's still a cleanup that we need in this constitution. So if I was to talk to DP, I'll tell him, let him divorce his ambitions of looking at 2022 and the larger interest of the Kenyan people wanting to amend our constitution to make it better and to be of more meaning to the people of Kenya. And the Mwananchi, whom I think he says he really holds dear in his heart. But looking at the politics, the handshake that took place at Harambee House between the Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, you can now, it's now coming out clear that DP Ruto was not part of the handshake. And right from the onset, he was very, very uncomfortable. And his camp felt that this handshake was meant to block his clear ascendancy to presidency in 2022. So they have taken the route of fighting, the handshake between Raila and Uhuru Kenyatta. You have heard about families of hustlers and some who come from the royal family. So, and this clip is really being hammered. And then the DP is been very cunning. He tells people, let's forget about campaign. But I can tell you, Debarl, if you look at the itinerary of the DP, he's hit the ground campaigning. He's on the ground campaigning. But when he's on those rallies, we'll tell you we don't want politics. And now, for those who are keen in running for 2022, ask me, who is on the ground with the same presence as the DP? You find Raila Amolo says, I've not said I'm running in 2022. When you move to Musalia, they are saying we are still talking about merger. You don't hear about Kalonzo. But the other guy is on the ground, he's speaking troops. Look at the people who accompany. If you hear he's in Nandi, you'll find some MPs from Central, somebody from Western Galwale. He's now a convert. I've had him drum support for him. Surprise allies of Raila Odinga, Aisha in Mombasa. They are the people hosting the DP. So I think those who want to have a strong challenge against the DP should wake up and take note that this guy is already started his campaign. He's putting his team together. He's hit the ground. If they don't respond, it may be too late for them. So politics is taking center stage. Central Kenya, I get the feeling that Central Kenya has not decided. Because when I see the people who endorse the DP, I've not seen that happening in the heart of Central Kenya. You will see that people will be picked from various constituencies or counties from Central Kenya. Then they will travel to far-flung areas with the DP to go and endorse him. And I was asking, why can these declarations be made in Nyeri, in Murang'a, and the likes? So there is I think the people who decide politics, and Kabando here could tell us more, from Central Kenya, I think have taken a retreat. I think they have taken a retreat. They are trying to come up with a roadmap. I don't know where it will take us. Maybe time will tell.
Debarl, let me stop the senator there. Please, allow me. Allow me. Because I'm a proud son of...
Yes.
So, I'm a proud son of...
Can I finish then?
I think interjection is allowed.
Okay.
Can you finish his statement, then you interject, please?
He'll proceed on the wrong premise.
No.
He'll cause a fallacy.
No.
You are risking a fallacy.
Let's just let him finish his thought, then you pick up.
Yeah, so
I
I think that's what is playing out. And I think Ruto, as is informed us, is aware that Central Kenya is not yet decided about his candidates for 2022. I think that is aware. And his response is that, let me map out other regions of this country. You have had, it's Kabando himself who told us that Ruto has been to Central Kenya more than he's been to Western, than he's been to Central. That's loaded. Coming from the former MP from Mukurweini.
I never meant that. Can I interject there? Can you allow me to interject there? You see, Debarl. Okay. You see why I'm talking about a fallacy is where you take a small piece and you want to generalize it instead of doing the specimen study. What I was trying to dissuade or to dismiss is a point that there is so much over investment in Central Kenya, and I talked about that the deputy president has been to other areas, and it seems that individuals are deliberately refusing to focus on the deputy president's visit to those areas or his engagement with the political players in those areas. The second point, this notion that individuals have from some parts of political camps, not because they don't speak for regions, they don't speak for communities, that in Central Kenya plays a different ball game of politics than other communities is completely wrong. And you need to study. For instance, if you go to Nyanza, to expect, and Oshoda comes from that area, he has lived it, he knows it. Raila's popularity within Nyanza is not because he's a son of Jaramogi. In fact, he's not the firstborn. The firstborn of Jaramogi is one Dr. Oburu Odinga, whose feature and prominence is not even known beyond Bondo. People even don't know he is a member of Yala. Raila Odinga has built his career from his childhood. And therefore, don't say it is Odingaism. It is Raila who has worked for it. Jaramogi did work for his political network. Uhuru Kenyatta, people say just because he's son of Jomo Kenyatta, you start talking about dynasty. I can tell you, Uhuru has worked his way up. He stood for the seat of Gatondo in 1987 and lost, okay? And he retreated and worked himself. In 2012, I was in parliament and we defied many odds.
Thank you.
Okay? So, well, we defied many odds for him to grow that way. So, this, I think, people owe everybody, because we are talking about the nation of Kenya, respect and sensitivity. This talk of Central Kenya is retreating. There are people who determine the politics of Central Kenya. I was in parliament for 2 terms. I was never endorsed by a camp of individuals or certain camps retreated in some areas. The people of Central Kenya, may they be Bere or Meru or Ebu or the Gikuyu people, will continue making political decisions conscious of the interests of them.
Thank you.
And also the qualification of individuals.
Let's hear from Dr. Shemachodo.
Debarl, these days I don't always agree with my very good friend Maina Kiai as a columnist. But in the Sunday Standard, he had something. He said Kenyans should not miss this opportunity to take advantage of the handshake. And
absolutely.
I fully agree with him. Part of it is, I think we're also getting a little diversionary here. I think it would help, and I want to make a passionate appeal to the media, if we would concentrate on the things that matter most to Kenyans, rather than chase our leaders, whatever they say, wherever they say it, whether in jest or they mean it. I think the real serious issues that we need to take advantage of and get out of this handshake. Talking to President Uhuru and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, probably this is the only opportunity they have to leave proper legacies, to fix Kenya right. And they have spoken it very well. They have talked about the 9 points. But talking to many ordinary Kenyans, when you mention 9 points, they say, you mean there are some 9 points anywhere. I want to request that we educated, enlightened Kenyans a little more about those 9 points, because they are very important. Absolutely. Having said that, there is one thing I like from what the Deputy President says. And I must say that I would be least qualified to tutor him on how to do politics, because he had very good tutors in Right Honorable Raila, in President Moi. So I would be slow to kind of tutor on how he should do the politics. But one thing that he says that I agree with, he says, let's be honest. Let's be honest. But I want to turn it back as a mirror to him. Whatever he says, let him be honest. Let President Kenyatta be honest, whatever he says. Let Right Honorable Raila be honest, whatever he says. If we were going to break away from the past, that should be the starting point. That for once, can we start telling Kenyans the truth? I think in that case, we'll be setting a proper stage where we can turn this country around. Kenya can be a real great country. The potentials are huge, as my colleagues have enumerated some. But we remain a sleeping giant because of leadership. Leadership that thrives on dishonesty. We say one thing, but what we mean is the opposite. And that's why I'm saying my agreement with the DP stops there perhaps. But let's be honest. Let me begin by myself being honest. Let him begin also by being honest. But also, having mentioned that, Debarl, this handshake, my suggestion to Kenyans would be, President Kenyatta and the former Prime Minister Raila have set the stage. Maybe they should hijack the agenda from the two of them. Can we make it to be a Kenyan agenda? How do we get the Kenya we want? How do we reinvent that Kenya come 2022? And it can be done, but it can only be done not by the two, not even by the Committee of 14. Those could just give guidance. But I think the Kenyans themselves must not lose this opportunity to shape Kenya through a national dialogue forum. And we are hoping that ultimately we'll get to that stage.
Let's hear from David Mukali.
I share completely in the good intentions of Dr. Ochodo that we should focus on the big things and the good things that we are doing as a country or that we need to do. But you see, the role of the media is also to check against word against deed. That's my business.
Yeah.
So we are not going to accept someone says to abandon checking the word against the deed. Because, look, in fact, I am living in dread nowadays. The good handshake we celebrated seems to be filtering away, into something else controversial. If you ask me, the management of the handshake after leaves a lot to be desired. It has left us to speculate because there's no substance to accompany the handshake or the memorandum, the 9-point agenda. So what is the media supposed to do? Write about nothing? The memorandum was one document which had 9 points explaining our historical problems and what afflicts the country and what we need to do. What we're waiting for is to see the action pursuant to that declaration. It is not happening. In fact, the shakers of the hands are all cagey about exactly what they meant or how to amplify or break down the handshake. Because the memorandum of understanding that was signed is like a vessel. We want to see the contents. And you see, even the team they set up is not moving. 2 months down the line, we have left and given opportunity to detractors of the handshake to take center stage. It cannot be blamed on us or the media or anyone else except the people who are supposed to drive that process. So I would say they should move quickly, put the country in shape and lead. Show us the way of the handshake so that we don't have such statements which are taking away the benefits of that handshake.
But they will argue and say, David, that yes, we have a team which has been formed, constituting of 14-member, a team. Yes. So the media also should exercise some patience and see what will actually come out from this particular, team in the first place.
You see, the nature, this is like politics, and it abhors that vacuum. There has to be action going on in politics. And secondly, we have to see whether indeed the handshake meant anything. And if it did, what are its implications? What is going on as a result of that handshake? And that's why the media is prodding, finding out, is there anything? What next? Why is it secretive? Why is it something that's not public? Even it is in the public interest. It should be made public and everybody should be invited to the table to feast to the feast of the handshake. Why is it not happening? So questions must be raised, and those questions are important to prod the movers of the handshake to take us forward. So they're not really necessarily destructive questions, or the reporting is not necessarily destructive. Let me leave that handshake to the owners of the handshake, because we really don't know what it has. In fact, after the president spoke the other day on Friday about the constitution and his position on the referendum, and I'm still trying to study that. In fact, I've played back that clip enough times to see what did he exactly mean. Did he say, I don't have time as President Uhuru Kenyatta to run around to ask people to change the constitution because my hands are full with my big four agenda of fixing the country? Or did he say we don't need constitutional reform? If he did, then we're having two people of the same handshake talking different things. Because the Odinga statement implied that there could be some understanding that there will be need for constitutional changes to give effect to the good agenda of national unity. So if we are leaving gaps in statements like that, or people are pushing against the handshake so that the president might step back from things he might have committed, perhaps, or the understanding they may have had, then we must raise questions. So for me, and I believe that's my personal view, this country deserves some constitutional reform, a change, amendments. I believe that these changes will happen before 2022 if we are serious about securing our democracy and bring unity into our politics.
Maybe effective communication will do, maybe coming from the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta himself, at least to tell us where actually this particular handshake is at. Will it hold in the first place? Since actually they shook this particular handshake, do you think also the government is actually putting out an effective communication as far as this?
That's why I said I think the management of that handshake, the communication that has proceeded after that,
is wanting,
and the details of it and how it pans out, really has left a lot for speculation, and therefore undermining the good intentions, which may end up achieving very little because of that management.
Yeah. Can you look to the angle of the media coverage of these issues? Dr. Oshoda has said that we need to focus on the real major issues. And normally we say we don't want to do that because we have to create news. Media is in the business of selling war, scandals, and controversy. That's business for them. I can tell you that we actually may have misread what the president said. None other than the celebrated David McCarley of Columbia University says that he's trying to replay that clip, but he cannot really decipher what the president says. The president did a joint statement with Raila with 9 points. They talked clearly about tribalism, about the need for inclusivity, and about corruption.
But is David alluding to that particular clip itself? This was
he's talking about the clip of State House.
Yes.
On Friday, when the president was talking to the manufacturers and at the Association of Manufacturers and at KEPSA. But all I'm saying is that sometimes in midst of your speech, you go off the cuff and say, like he did, apart from what you are doing out there, I really don't have the time to go expend all the energies and resources talking about the constitution, the most important things, and it is actually agreed, are these issues before us. The audience for him that day were the manufacturers, and he was telling them, this, apart from politics out there, this is a message I have that we really need to sort out the big four in order to take the country forward. What happened are two things. First, the media was very quick to pick breaking news. The president said, I'm opposed to constitutional change. Okay? He never said that. Then, the individuals who are uncomfortable with the handshake were very quick. The president told them many times, stop talking about 2022. They had defied him. Now, when he said, I have no time to go running around on the issue of Katiba, they are taking political capital.
Right.
So you can call those political detractors and the media positively, so that I'm not misquoted, scavengers, political scavengers.
And before we took a short break, of course, it was on Shemo Chodo to say something.
Debarl, the aspect of whether should we go through a constitutional reform or not, I think that's a debate that's going to engage us for the next couple of months. And as a National Mediation Forum, which Honorable Kabando here and I belong to, the position is, and it brings together 14 different initiatives. The premise is that we need to audit the constitution, what has worked, what hasn't worked, and why, what can we improve on. I think there is no denying that there are some issues that need to be worked on, a few that have been spoken around the table, but that audit is critical. Having also said that, we can also look at this process in 2 stages. There are certain short-term gains, what one may call quick wins. If there is truly goodwill on those 9-point agenda, that particularly the Jubilee government can demonstrate that, and I really want to extend the invitation, when we talk of the DP going to Western and so on, I really hope, I can't wait for the day when President Uhuru, former Prime Minister, and even all the other leaders go to Nyanza, for example. I want to see projects being announced there. I want to see them all together go to Northeastern, for the marginalized areas, because these are some of the points they carry in their 9-point agenda. But let there be some quick wins that demonstrate to the Kenyan people that this handshake was more than individual gain. That's what I wanted to add.
All right, let's say from Okong'o, unless you have other sentiments on the handshake, then we can close this particular chapter. We drill deeper now on NY scandal. Okong'o.
Yeah, I think the president and the former prime minister had good intentions. That handshake, they put forward a very good agenda for the country, and they placed some responsibility on 2 individuals, secretariat, to manage the process. That has since been increased to a team of other 16 people from across the country. So my take is that now the responsibility is on this enlarged team, and I think we even have members of National Assembly, we have senators sitting in place, and I want them to focus on the single agenda that we want to look at this constitution. And when you talk about audit, the constitution implementation process has been very costly to this country. Year in, year out, this country has been crying that we are spending so much resources on managing our wage bill instead of pushing a lot of money to development. So when we talk about looking at this constitution, it's not what somebody is saying that we are looking at positions for individuals. We want the Kenyan people to enjoy the benefits of the constitution that they enacted in 2010. And then the problem that has been with us for so many years, inclusivity. Inclusivity. Really, if anybody is in leadership and wants to shut his eyes to this devil that has been with us for so long, then they are not worthy being leaders in this country. So I think this is the time that we need to rally all our leaders, stakeholders like these initiatives. Let's have it as a single agenda that between now and maybe the next 2 years, our single purpose as a country is to push an agenda of constitutional reform, create a constitution that makes us more united, one people, and I think that's the best legacy that the president can leave on us. For my colleagues in politics, the senators I see on weekends, let's forget about this politics of Vitandawili, this politics. Let's for once make our people vote for us proud, that we can come down and have an issue-based agenda. Remember in the US, there was a time when the threat of the Americans was at stake, during the terrorist attacks. And President Bush needed to get enough senators to pass a vote so that he could send the army to Iraq. There are senators who are from the Democrats, including Hillary Clinton, who said, if this is in the best interest of the security of the American people, I'll vote with the Republicans. And that's what she did. And I'm waiting for a day when I'm going to see leaders from both sides of the political divide uniting in the best interest of this nation. That's what I'm waiting for, Debarl.
Anybody, I would say, anybody opposed to the handshake, to the clearly stated 9-point agenda, is opposed to inclusivity, is opposed to fighting corruption, is opposed to finishing tribalism, is opposed to reviewing the national ethos, national values that we truly so direly need. Anybody opposed to the handshake is opposed to Uhuru Kenyatta. And if you're from the NASA side, it means you don't have confidence in your leader, Raila Odinga. This is not about Raila. This is not about Uhuru. I want to remind Kenyans that selfish and short-sighted individuals changed the Kenyan constitution in the late 1960s so that the presidential candidate to succeed Kenyatta had to be over 40 years. The intention was to block the then flamboyant, brilliant Tom Mboya. In 1976, people tried to change the constitution in order to remove the 90 days allowed in the case of the death of a president or incapacitation of the president, so that Daniel Moi could not be. Those who tried to block Tom Mboya did not become president. Okay? Those who tried to block Moi did not become president. So we need to revisit. And those who did 1966 against Jaramogi, so Jaramogi's son and Kibaki united in 2002. It is important for those who are seeking to occupy the house on the hill, State House, to really embrace the 9-point agenda.
Thank you.
Because that is how we are going to invest for posterity.
Thank you.